What's your go-to meal to make when no one else is around? Usually for me, it's a sandwich or mac and cheese. If I'm all by myself and I don't have anyone else to cook for, and it's the end of the day, sometimes I just make popcorn with olive oil and salt. It's delicious and I like it. But of course, it's not what I would make if I were hosting someone. If I'm cooking for someone, it's more likely that I'm going to try harder, at least a pasta primavera or soup and bread, or if I'm being really fancy and it's winter, a vegetable pie or something. But am I going to go to all that effort just for me? Yeah, no, probably not. When I was living on my own in grad school, I'd make enough chili to heat up leftovers for the rest of the week, and I got good at making a few creative meals just for me. But I always enjoyed when I got to make cheesecake for a potluck or have people over for dinner. There is something special about making food that other people are going to enjoy. There's also something special about making food that you're going to enjoy with other people. Giving someone lunch is a gesture, a fine gesture, by the way, but taking the time to sit down and eat together is an act of friendship, of community, and of love. In today's gospel story, we find Jesus just after he's found out that his cousin, John the Baptist, has been beheaded by Herod. He tries to go away in a boat to a deserted place on his own, but the people who want to be with him are undeterred, and they follow him by foot. Instead of sending them away, Jesus reaches out to them in the midst of his grief, and he heals them. This is Matthew's Jesus, and for Matthew, Jesus is the second Moses. Matthew's emphasis is on Jesus' teaching. But this time, Jesus is there to heal and to serve. He doesn't spend any time on sermons. In the midst of his own pain, he allows people to show up and be with him. And he also shows up for them. But healing isn't enough. He knows they also need to eat, and so does he. So, in an act that will foreshadow the Last Supper, Jesus breaks bread and fish with them, blesses it, and he and his disciples hand it out to everyone who is present, including the least of these, at least in the context of the time, the women and the children. Instead of sending the people away to buy bread for themselves, as his disciples suggest he should, he gathers this crowd to sit down together for a gigantic meal. In the midst of grief and sorrow and pain, this simple act of sharing food is part of what heals and connects. It's part of what reminds this community that they still have each other and that God is still with them. And it's enough. There would have been plenty of worry that there wasn't going to be enough food, that those 5 loaves and 2 fish wouldn't manage to feed so many. And yet it was enough. Maybe it was a miracle because those actual loaves and fishes were able to spread so far, or maybe it was enough because the generosity of sharing those 5 loaves and 2 fish inspired others to go and run and grab more, to bring and share in this gigantic feast, since sharing food together is always better than eating your proverbial popcorn alone. Either way, as anyone who has planned a party knows, any spontaneous feeding of 5,000 people is nothing short of miraculous. Every week with fellow Christians around the globe, we share communion together, a meal that recalls the Last Supper, but that probably also recalls so many other instances when Jesus and his disciples, and perhaps many others, gathered and ate together. Our congregation practices what's called open communion, along with ELCA Lutherans across the country and some other Christian denominations as well. Jesus didn't ask who was worthy to come to the table, and he didn't put preconditions on participation. He just invited everyone to the feast. When we take communion, we're coming together around Jesus' table, standing with a great cloud of witnesses across time and space, participating in a practice that's 2 millennia old. Communion reminds us that even if we might feel lonely sometimes, we're never truly alone. And in just a couple of weeks, our congregation will start sharing meals together again after each service. These meals are important not just because the hungry are fed, but because they're an opportunity to sit down and talk with each other, take time to get to know each other, to forge relationships in this community that will help see folks through joys and challenges and sorrows. They're an opportunity to slow down and take time to be with one another. That is an opportunity that's harder and harder to find right now as our lives and our schedules demand ever more from us, as deadlines loom and we feel the pressure to spend all of our time hustling and being productive. But we are, as they say, human beings, not human doings. And part of being human is being together in community. That takes time and effort, and it is worth both of those things. In this community meal, Jesus denies the supposed inherent good of independence. The people are not told to go off and feed themselves. He denies his own impulse to cut himself off when he needs his community and his community needs him. And he emphasizes publicly the healing power of eating together. Jesus tells us in no uncertain terms that none of us are islands, no matter how independent we may think we are. We all need each other, sometimes more than others. That need for one another is rooted in our humanity, and it's something we are called to cultivate rather than reject. And the ways we show up for each other, our response to that mutual need, is rooted in God's grace and love. In a world that is pushing us to always be more efficient, I believe that this text is calling us to slow down and notice each other, our humanity, our challenges, and our joys. God doesn't care how much we hustle. God only calls us to show up in love. Amen.